Sarah, welcome to A House for Arts. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. It's an honor.
So excited for our conversation, especially because you have such an interesting background. I know you recently wrote a novel, and we'll come back to that, but you've spent over 30 years as an attorney in the past, and you originally focused on environmental issues. And what I understand is you wrote this new novel that's brought you back to your roots with your concerns about environmental issues and changes. So what is the novel's title, and tell us what it's about?
Sure. It's called The Change Agents: Whispers in the Wind, and it's a story in which animals seek to partner with humans to save the planet from climate change. And the premise of it is that animals are getting extremely frustrated, exasperated with their habitats disappearing, their food supplies going away, and they realize we need to save, in order to save ourselves, we need to get humans to do something.
Right, get humans on board
Right.
with this project.
Exactly.
And I understand the protagonist it's a human woman, Eliza, and she gets kind of recruited by these animals in order to become a change agent, essentially.
Exactly, yes, she does. The animals have it all planned out. They have an alliance of animals from all over the planet, and they have planned and chosen Eliza as their initial spokesperson.
So it's got almost like this classic kind of superhero format then to the novel.
Right.
That's really cool, and we'll kind of come back to the kind of process of writing and storytelling for you. But I understand that as much as this novel's a lot of fun, that you originally started writing it because of personal loss.
I did, yeah. The beginning of the story is not at all what someone would expect, knowing my environmental background. It actually started as grief therapy for me because one of my dogs, whose name was Bebop, passed away suddenly and unexpectedly, and I just had trouble with it. I was having big trouble dealing with it. And friends said, well, maybe for grief, I've heard if you write something, maybe write him a letter, just write something. So I wrote a poem about him, and that was helpful, but I still felt like I needed something more. And I would stare at his picture in my office and think...
And I've seen a picture, he's a cute guy.
Yeah, it's a picture in the book, actually.
Yeah.
And an idea came to me, well, maybe I write a story in which Bebop's the main character. And how about he works with other animals, and they team up with humans to do something. But what are they going to do? What's something that would interest both animals and people? What's common to both? So different ideas popped into my head, but they usually concerned only animals or humans and not both of them. And then one day I was reading a climate change blog that I'd followed for a while, and all of a sudden it hit me. I'm like, well, this is it. It's climate change. Climate change is the enemy here because that impacts everything on the planet.
So climate change is the enemy that unites humans and animals. You were trying to kind of figure out how to bring them together, having this uniting front, which is so great. And actually, it makes me think about many calls to climate change, which we've been hearing a lot, especially over the past 10 to 20 years. Although I know scientists have been working on getting this to the public for far longer, as you know, of course, with your background as an attorney. Why do you think it is that so many calls for the fight against climate change tend to be pretty depressing or pretty bleak? And what examples have you seen of that?
Totally, and that was one of my goals with this novel, is to present it optimistically. But I think the main reason for the doom and gloom messaging around climate change is, first, it's a huge issue. I mean, it's a monumental issue. The projected future, if we continue on the path we have, is awful. So to present such a huge issue with such a devastating impact, I think is just overwhelming for people. And when you see such a huge problem with such dire consequences, I mean, the natural reaction is to shut down. It's too depressing. It's so big, what am I gonna do?
It's like people feel so powerless. They see all these statistics and they're like, in 20 years, Florida's going to be underwater. It's like, this is, what do I do? I'm just one person, right? So what does your novel do then in kind of, not necessarily in reaction against that call, obviously, because it's trying to motivate people, but how does it motivate people? How does it give this kind of the opposite of the doom and gloom narrative?
Yeah, so many climate fiction stories show the show the future of what we might be facing with climate change, and they are based in the future or headed that way. This story is kind of in present day, but it presents a hopeful message, a message that if we work together, we can accomplish huge things, and we can make a dent, at least. We can do something to try to address climate change. And if we do nothing, that we don't want to even consider that. But let's work together. We're not too far into this that all is lost. Work together, do what we can, and make a difference.
I'm already feeling a little bit better hearing that. But you know, let's because this is so interesting that your novel, I mean, it's really taking this kind of imaginary take on animals and personifying animals and giving them characters and, you know, gearing up with humans. How do you get people to take tangible actions in their everyday lives to, you know, help fight climate change using this sort of imaginary setup? How do you go from the imaginary to the literal in very concrete ways for people?
Right. Well, part of it is some of the things they do in the book together. For example, they plant trees, they have plant-based diets, so the animals say, of course we're vegetarian. And as I was writing, I'm thinking, of course they're vegetarian because of other reasons. They're animals, they're not, you know, harming each other. But the other take on that is they're plant-based because it's better for the environment as a whole. So there are examples. You can do what they do in the novel. And the other part of it is to interest people enough in being hopeful and wanting to make changes that they look at all the other resources. There's a ton of great content out there about what you can do to decrease your carbon footprint. So this is kind of to start the conversation in this with these imaginary characters in their own world. And then let's do something.
That's so interesting, and what a refreshing take on this whole issue. You know, we've had another guest in a past episode, Sujana Morty, who is also working to fight climate change, but she's done a lot of research on these coral reef colonies deep underwater in the ocean, and has collaborated with photographers and artists to help raise awareness to the public about the impact of climate change. You, Sarah, are writing a novel with these imaginary fictional characters helping to motivate people. You know, there are clearly many different effective ways to motivate people to fight climate change, but why is written storytelling and particularly a novel, such a great way to inspire people to take action?
I think storytelling in general is a hugely powerful tool, and as a society, we're envisioning and realizing how powerful stories can be, and it's being used in various other ways now. But I think the written word...
Like such as what? Like where are you really seeing this method of storytelling cropping up in unexpected ways?
I've been seeing it in marketing actually more often, where you see advertisements of people telling their story of where was I with, how was I feeling and how this product really helped me, so it helped people to relate to it.
Right. Brings a human story element to something rather than only talking about the product itself, for instance. Right.
And with written storytelling, it enables a reader to be guided by the author, to be guided by the scenes, be guided by the characters, guided by their dialogue, but yet to internalize it and interpret it in a way that's meaningful for the reader. And therefore, it's a more effective way of getting them to make changes on their own, because it's a feeling. To paraphrase Maya Angelou, people will remember, they won't remember what you say or do, but they will remember how you made them feel. So the written word is such a powerful way to invoke feelings within people.
Sarah, I'm so glad you brought that up, and it's such a beautiful Maya Angelou quote. I always remember ever since I first read it, I was like, gosh, it is so true.
It is.
It is really about how you make people feel, right?
Right.
I'm wondering where you see yourself taking, you've published this novel, Change Agents, Whispers in the Wind. Do you want to write another novel in the future? Do you want to do some other type of creative project? How do you see yourself moving forward for the future?
As I was writing, I always envisioned writing a trilogy, ideally. We'll see whether that happens. But one of the things that comes to mind that I didn't even think about as I was writing, but others came to me and with the thought of it, is to use it as an educational tool. Now, clearly, I wanted it to be motivating. But shortly after the book came out, I'd been, getting the word out, what it concerned. And I was approached by an educator from a private school saying, we're really struggling with how to present the topic of climate change to our students without scaring them.
And these are these mostly middle school students, high school students?
This school goes right from kindergarten on up.
Okay.
So hearing that you have this story with talking animals and they're banding together as change agents seemed to be a way to introduce the topic to them in a non-threatening, non-scary way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think adults even gravitate towards animals, let alone I think children and young adults absolutely feel a certain affinity towards animals. And I think that's such a fantastic idea and such a great educational tool.
Yeah.
Well, Sarah, this was so great to have this conversation about the important work you're doing. Clearly, this is such a refreshing take on helping fight climate change, and I hope many people can have the chance to read your novel.
Thank you.